Call the police. Daniel Whitmore said it quietly, almost casually, as if he were requesting another bellman instead of turning a misunderstanding into something far more serious. Beneath the crystal chandeliers of the Grand Belmont Hotel, conversations softened. Rolling suitcases slowed across the polished marble floor. A few guests near the elevators turned their heads toward the black woman standing beside the front desk. Lieutenant Maya Carter did not move. At 35, she had spent 11 years in law enforcement, long enough to recognize the moment when suspicion stopped searching for facts and began searching for justification. But tonight there was no uniform on her shoulders, no visible badge at her waist, nothing announcing that she supervised police officers for a living. She wore a dark blue evening suit, understated jewelry, and carried a small black purse containing the invitation that should have allowed her upstairs 20 minutes earlier. Daniel stood across from her in a tailored charcoal suit, his hotel nameplate catching the warm lobby light. Beside him, front desk supervisor Claire Bennett held Maya's invitation as though it were evidence of a problem rather than proof that one should never have existed. "Miss Carter," Daniel said, "we have given you several opportunities to explain why you are attempting to access a private event." Maya looked at him steadily. "I did explain. I am an invited guest. We have not been able to verify that." Maya's eyes shifted toward the computer behind Claire. "You have my name. You have my identification. You have the invitation. You also have the guest list." Claire's expression tightened. The invitation could have been obtained from someone else. Maya let the silence sit there. Imagine walking into a luxury hotel carrying exactly what every other invited guest had been asked to carry, then watching each piece of proof become another reason to question you. Maya had seen white couples approach the ballroom elevators with invitations in hand. Staff members smiled, offered directions, and wished them a pleasant evening. No one asked how they obtained their invitations. No one asked whether they had hotel reservations. No one asked them to prove they belonged. Daniel glanced toward hotel security standing several feet away. "If you refuse to leave the private event area, we will have law enforcement resolve this." Maya looked around the lobby. A woman near the lounge quickly lowered her eyes. A businessman beside the elevators pretended to check his phone. The humiliation was quiet, polished, almost elegant. That somehow made it worse. Maya could have ended part of it immediately. Her department credentials were inside her purse. One glimpse of the badge would probably change Daniel's tone, Claire's expression, perhaps even the way the watching guests interpreted the scene. But Maya did not reach for it. She had already given them everything an invited guest should have needed to provide. If respect arrived only after they discovered she carried authority, then it would answer a question she had not yet asked aloud. Daniel reached toward the hotel phone. "This is your final opportunity, Miss Carter." Maya met his eyes without raising her voice. "I understand." Daniel paused. Perhaps he expected fear. Perhaps anger. Instead, Maya stepped slightly away from the desk, leaving her hands relaxed at her sides. "Then call them," she said. Daniel stared at her. Maya's expression never changed. "Please do. And when the officers arrive, make sure you tell them exactly why you called." 30 minutes earlier, Maya Carter had been standing beneath fluorescent lights at Richmond Police Headquarters, finishing the last report of a shift that had already stretched longer than expected. Her uniform jacket hung over the back of her chair, and the invitation to the evening charity banquet rested beside her phone. The event supported mentoring programs for teenagers across the city, a cause Maya had worked with for years through the department's community outreach efforts. She was attending as an invited department representative, but she had no intention of arriving in uniform. When her paperwork was finished, Maya changed into a dark blue evening suit, placed her badge and department credentials inside her small black purse, and carefully folded her uniform into a garment bag. Lieutenant Maya Carter had supervised officers through difficult calls, neighborhood meetings, and long nights when patience mattered more than authority. At 35, with 11 years of service behind her, she had learned that a badge could open doors, but she had also learned that character was revealed by how people behaved when they did not see one. She left headquarters shortly after 6 o'clock and walked toward her sedan beneath a cool Virginia evening sky. Downtown Richmond was beginning to glow as office windows reflected the last pale light of the day. The Grand Belmont Hotel was less than 4 miles away. Maya expected an ordinary evening. Greet the event organizers, represent the department, speak with several youth mentors, and perhaps leave early enough to enjoy a quiet dinner afterward. Traffic moved slowly along the downtown streets, giving her time to think about the young people who would benefit from the fundraiser. She remembered one teenager she had mentored 2 years earlier who once told her that entering certain buildings made him feel as though everyone was silently asking what he was doing there. Maya had told him something she believed deeply. You do not have to become important before you deserve respect. At the time, it had sounded like advice. Tonight, it would become a test. The Grand Belmont appeared ahead, its limestone entrance illuminated beneath a wide canopy. Valets in dark coats moved between luxury sedans and sport utility vehicles. Through the tall glass doors, Maya could see chandeliers glowing above polished marble floors. She pulled into the hotel entrance and handed her keys to the valet. "Charity banquet?" he asked pleasantly. "Yes," Maya replied. He smiled and pointed toward the lobby. "Ballroom level. Elevators are straight ahead." Nothing about the exchange felt unusual. Maya thanked him and entered the hotel carrying only her purse and invitation. Inside, guests moved toward the elevators in evening attire. A white couple ahead of her showed an invitation to an employee and continued without delay. Maya approached the same area, expecting the same brief exchange. Before she reached the elevators, a woman's voice stopped her. "Excuse me, ma'am." Maya turned. Claire Bennett stood behind the front desk in a tailored hotel uniform, watching her with an expression that was polite on the surface but unusually attentive underneath. "Can I help you find something?" Maya lifted the invitation slightly. "I am attending the charity banquet upstairs." Claire looked at the invitation, then at Maya. "Are you staying at the hotel?" Maya shook her head. "No, I am here for the event." Claire's smile disappeared by a fraction. "Then I am going to need to verify that before you go upstairs." Maya glanced toward the white couple disappearing into the elevator, then back at Claire. She had been inside the Grand Belmont for less than 2 minutes, and already the rules seemed to be changing. Claire extended her hand toward Maya's invitation. "May I see that?" Maya handed it over without hesitation. The card carried the Grand Belmont logo, the name of the youth mentoring fundraiser, the ballroom level, the starting time, and the name Maya Carter printed beneath the department delegation. Claire examined it carefully, then looked back at Maya. "Where did you get this?" The question was so unexpected that Maya initially thought she had misunderstood. "It was sent to my office." Claire turned the invitation over as though something hidden might appear on the back. "Which office?" Maya kept her voice even. "The Richmond Police Department." Claire's eyes lifted immediately. Maya noticed the reaction but did not explain further. She had said where the invitation came from. That should have been enough. "Do you work there?" Claire asked. "Yes." Behind Maya, the elevator chimed. Another group of guests approached carrying identical invitations. A hotel employee glanced at their cards, smiled, and directed them upstairs. The entire exchange lasted perhaps 10 seconds. Maya watched them enter the elevator, then returned her attention to Claire. "Is there a problem with my invitation? I am just trying to verify it." "Then please verify it." Claire moved toward the computer terminal. For a moment, Maya believed the matter would end there. The guest list was available electronically, and her name had been submitted days earlier by the event coordinator. But Claire did not search immediately. Instead, she asked, "Do you have a room reservation with us?" "No." "Are you meeting someone who is staying here?" "No. I am attending the banquet." Claire gave a small professional smile. "The ballroom is reserved for invited guests." Maya looked down at the invitation still in Claire's hand. "That is why I brought that." The smile faded. Maya could feel the difference now. It was not one question. One question could be routine. It was the way each answer seemed to produce another requirement. She had entered with an invitation. Then she needed to explain where it came from. Then where she worked. Then whether she had a hotel reservation. None of those questions appeared to have been asked of the guests who passed beside her. "May I see your identification?" Claire asked. Maya paused. "Why?" "To confirm the name on the invitation." Maya removed her driver's license from her purse and placed it on the counter. Claire compared the name and photograph. They matched. Maya expected her invitation back. Claire kept both items on the counter. "Who is your contact for the event?" "Emily Foster, the event coordinator." Claire nodded slowly. "Do you have her phone number?" Maya gave it from memory. Claire wrote it down, but still did not pick up the phone. "You can also check the guest list," Maya said. Claire's expression tightened slightly. I understand how our procedures work, ma'am. Maya studied her for a second. She had spent years interviewing people under pressure. Tone mattered. Pauses mattered. More importantly, patterns mattered. Across the lobby, a white man in a navy blazer arrived without an invitation visible in his hand. A staff member recognized the event name he mentioned and directed him toward the elevators without requesting identification. Maya looked back at Claire. I would like my driver's license back, please. Claire returned it, but kept the invitation. I need my supervisor to review this. What exactly needs reviewing? Maya asked. Claire glanced toward the elevators, then back at her. We have to make sure people entering private functions are supposed to be here. Maya nodded once. Then check the list with my name on it. Claire reached for the desk phone, but instead of calling Emily Foster, she pressed an internal extension. Mr. Whitmore, she said quietly. Could you come to the front desk? I have a situation I need you to look at. Maya heard the words clearly. She had arrived as an invited guest. In less than 5 minutes, without raising her voice or breaking a single rule, she had somehow become a situation. Daniel Whitmore arrived less than 2 minutes later, moving across the marble lobby with the practiced confidence of a man accustomed to solving problems before guests noticed them. At 46, he had managed luxury hotels for nearly 2 decades, and he understood that the Grand Belmont sold more than rooms. It sold certainty. Guests expected quiet hallways, polished service, controlled access, and the comforting impression that nothing unexpected could enter their evening. Daniel had built his career around protecting that impression. The danger was that somewhere along the way, he had begun trusting appearances almost as much as facts. Claire stepped toward him before Maya could speak. Mr. Whitmore, this woman says she is attending the charity banquet, but she is not staying at the hotel. Daniel glanced at Maya, then at the invitation in Claire's hand. Does she have identification? Yes. The name matches. Maya watched Daniel's face, expecting that answer to resolve the issue. Instead, he asked, has the invitation been verified? Claire shook her head. Not yet. I thought you should see it first. Daniel examined the card carefully. Where did you receive this, Miss Carter? Maya heard the repetition immediately. I already answered that question. It was sent to my office at the Richmond Police Department. Daniel looked up. And your connection to the department is? Maya paused. There was nothing improper about asking for clarification in isolation. But this was no longer an isolated question. It was another link in a chain that seemed to grow every time she answered. I work there. Daniel nodded without asking what she did. And you are attending alone? Yes. Do you know anyone currently inside the ballroom? Emily Foster invited me. She is coordinating the event. Maya gestured toward the desk phone. You have her number. Claire wrote it down. Daniel glanced at the paper, but did not reach for the phone. Behind them, the elevator doors opened. 3 white guests stepped into the lobby carrying event programs. One laughed as another mentioned forgetting his invitation upstairs. A staff member smiled and directed them back toward the ballroom without requesting identification. Maya noticed. Daniel did not seem to. Mr. Whitmore, Maya said, is my name on the guest list? Daniel looked toward Claire. Claire finally turned to the computer and began searching. Several seconds passed. Her expression shifted slightly. There is an M. Carter listed under the department delegation. Maya waited. Daniel looked at her. Only an initial. Yes. Then that does not necessarily confirm identity. Maya felt the pattern become unmistakable. Invitation. Matching identification. Employer. Event coordinator. Guest list. Each answer reached the same invisible wall. Imagine standing beneath chandeliers designed to make every guest feel important while slowly realizing that the people responsible for welcoming you had already decided you needed more proof than everyone else. Maya kept her voice controlled. My driver's license says Maya Carter. The invitation says Maya Carter. Your guest list says M. Carter under the Richmond Police Department delegation. What information do you have that suggests I am not that person? Daniel hesitated. It was brief, but Maya saw it. We are simply being cautious. Cautious about what? Daniel's expression tightened. About unauthorized access to a private event. Maya nodded once. Has anyone reported that I attempted to enter without permission? You were approaching the elevators. With an invitation. Which we are verifying. Maya looked at Claire, then back at Daniel. Then verify it. For the first time, the polished rhythm of the lobby seemed to disappear around them. Daniel had been called over to resolve a problem. Instead, Maya had asked him to identify what the problem actually was. And standing there with her matching identification, invitation, employer, coordinator's name, and guest list entry all pointing in the same direction, he still did not have an answer. Daniel remained silent for several seconds, but instead of answering Maya's question, he handed the invitation back to Claire. "Contact the event office," he said. Claire reached for the desk phone and called the extension listed for the ballroom staff. No one answered. She tried again. Still nothing. Upstairs, the banquet was beginning, and the event team was likely moving between the ballroom, kitchen, and registration tables. Daniel looked toward Maya as though the unanswered phone had somehow strengthened his position. "We cannot confirm your attendance at the moment." Maya glanced at the computer. "You already found my name. We found an initial and a last name. Under the police department delegation." "Correct. And my identification matches the full name on the invitation." Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. "That still does not establish that the guest list entry belongs to you." Maya almost admired the precision with which certainty kept retreating. Every time she reached it, Daniel moved it another step away. "What would establish it?" she asked. Daniel hesitated. Claire answered for him. "Direct confirmation from the event coordinator." Maya looked at her. "Then call Emily Foster's cell phone. I gave you the number." Claire exchanged a glance with Daniel. Neither moved. Another elevator chimed. Two men and a woman approached the ballroom elevators, speaking about the fundraiser. One man carried no invitation. A hotel employee smiled and pressed the elevator button for them. Maya watched the doors close. Then she turned back. "Did you verify those guests?" Claire's face became guarded. "They are known to the hotel." "Known by whom?" "Our staff." Maya nodded slowly. "So recognition is enough for them. But matching identification, an invitation, my employer, the event coordinator's name, her phone number, and your own guest list are not enough for me." Daniel stepped closer to the desk. "Ms. Carter, I would appreciate it if you did not make assumptions about how we handle other guests." Maya's expression remained calm. "I am describing what I just watched." The distinction landed harder than an accusation would have. Daniel lowered his voice. "This is a private property, and we have an obligation to protect our guests." Maya heard the phrase clearly. Our guests. For the first time, she wondered whether Daniel realized what he had implied. "I am supposed to be one of your guests," she said. Daniel did not respond. A hotel security employee named Marcus Hill approached from across the lobby after Claire quietly signaled him. He was a black man in his early 50s with a calm, professional manner. "Is everything all right?" he asked. Daniel answered before Maya could. "We are verifying whether Ms. Carter has authorization to attend the ballroom event." Marcus looked at the invitation, then at Maya. "Has she caused a disturbance?" Daniel paused. "No." "Tried to enter a restricted area after being told not to?" "No." Marcus looked toward Claire. "Does she have identification?" Claire nodded. "It matches the invitation." Marcus glanced at the computer monitor. "And the guest list?" Claire answered more quietly this time. "There is an M. Carter under the department delegation." Marcus did not say anything for a moment. He simply looked at Daniel. The silence was uncomfortable because the facts sounded different when someone listed them without suspicion attached. Maya noticed Daniel's expression change, but only slightly. He was not ready to admit the problem. "Not yet. We still need direct confirmation," Daniel said. Marcus nodded professionally, though his eyes suggested he understood exactly what was happening. Maya looked at the ballroom clock above the corridor entrance. The banquet had already started. She had been standing in the lobby for nearly 15 minutes. "Mr. Whitmore," she said quietly, "you keep telling me what you still need. I want you to tell me something else. What have I actually done wrong?" Daniel looked at her, and for the first time since arriving, the manager of the Grand Belmont had no procedure ready to hide behind. Daniel looked at Maya for several seconds before answering. "I am not saying you have done anything wrong." Maya held his gaze. "Then why am I being stopped?" The question was simple, but simplicity had become dangerous because there was nowhere left for the explanation to hide. Daniel adjusted his jacket and glanced toward Claire. "Our staff identified a concern, and I am responsible for taking that concern seriously." Maya nodded. "What concern?" Claire stepped forward. "You were approaching the ballroom elevators without being verified." Maya looked toward the elevators, where another group of guests had just been waved through after briefly showing their invitations. "I was approaching the elevators because the valet told me the ballroom was upstairs. I had my invitation in my hand. Claire folded her arms loosely. That does not automatically mean you were authorized. Maya's voice remained measured. What would have made you assume I was authorized? Claire opened her mouth, then stopped. Daniel intervened. Ms. Carter, this conversation is becoming unnecessarily confrontational. Maya almost smiled, but there was no humor in the moment. She had not raised her voice. She had not stepped toward anyone. She had answered every question they asked. Yet somehow asking them to explain their own decisions had become confrontation. I am standing exactly where you asked me to stand, she said. I have answered every question. I am asking you to explain why the evidence you requested has not resolved your concern. Marcus Hill remained a few feet away, listening carefully. He glanced toward Daniel. Mr. Whitmore, I can escort Ms. Carter upstairs and have the event staff confirm her at registration. It was the most practical suggestion anyone had offered. Daniel considered it, but Claire shook her head. If she is not authorized, then we would already have taken her into the private event area. Marcus replied calmly. The registration table is outside the ballroom doors. Daniel looked between them. For one brief moment, Maya thought common sense might finally win. Then a hotel employee hurried past and whispered something to Claire. Claire leaned toward Daniel. The ballroom staff is busy with opening remarks. They cannot come down right now. Daniel exhaled. Then we wait. Maya glanced at the clock. She had now missed the beginning of the program she had been invited to represent her department at. For how long? Until we receive confirmation. You have confirmation. We have partial information. Maya looked at him carefully. No. You have information you have decided is not enough. Daniel's face hardened. Ms. Carter, I need you to cooperate with hotel policy. Show me the policy. Silence returned. Claire looked toward Daniel. Marcus lowered his eyes briefly, as though he already knew what answer was coming. Daniel said, Our management team has discretion when there are security concerns. Maya nodded. Then document the security concern. Daniel blinked. Excuse me. Write down exactly what I did that caused it. Not what you felt. Not what you assumed. What I actually did. A few guests nearby had begun listening openly now. Daniel noticed them, and his discomfort sharpened. The Grand Belmont was built around appearances, and this appearance was becoming difficult to control. Ms. Carter, perhaps it would be better if you waited somewhere more private while we resolve this. Maya immediately understood. They were no longer simply questioning whether she belonged upstairs. Now they wanted her removed from public view while they continued questioning her. I will remain here, she said. This is where you stopped me. Daniel's voice lowered. If you refuse a reasonable request from management, we may have to ask you to leave the property. Maya looked at the invitation in Claire's hand, then at the elevators carrying other guests toward the banquet. So now I may be removed from the hotel because I asked why I was stopped. Daniel did not answer directly. He reached for the radio at the desk. Marcus, stay here. Marcus remained still. Maya watched Daniel carefully. The situation had changed again. First she needed an invitation, then identification, then a guest list entry, then direct confirmation. Now, even with every fact pointing toward the same truth, the issue was becoming her willingness to accept being treated differently. Daniel lifted the radio and spoke quietly to another security employee. Maya took one slow breath. She had spent 11 years learning that authority revealed itself most clearly when someone challenged its assumptions. Tonight, Daniel Whitmore was revealing far more than he realized. The second security employee arrived from the East Corridor less than a minute later, but Marcus Hill quietly raised a hand before the man could approach Maya. There has been no disturbance, Marcus said. We are still verifying an event guest. His choice of words mattered. Not intruder. Not trespasser. Guest. Daniel noticed it too. Maya remained beside the front desk. Her posture relaxed even as the lobby seemed to grow smaller around her. The chandeliers still glowed. Soft piano music still drifted from the lounge. Bellmen still crossed the marble floor carrying luggage. Yet every ordinary sound now seemed to underline how differently her evening had unfolded. A white couple approached the elevators laughing softly, and Claire gave them a familiar smile. No identification. No questions. No delay. Maya watched them disappear behind the closing doors. Then another guest arrived carrying the same cream-colored banquet invitation Maya had presented. A front desk employee pointed upstairs without examining it closely. Maya turned toward Daniel. Was that guest verified? Daniel followed her gaze. Our staff uses judgment based on the circumstances. What circumstances? Maya asked. Daniel's expression tightened. Every situation is different. What is different about mine? There it was again. The question no one wanted to answer directly. Claire looked toward the computer screen. Daniel glanced at Marcus. Marcus remained silent. Maya could almost feel the invisible line running through the lobby, separating people who were presumed to belong from people required to prove it. She had crossed that line without knowing it existed. Miss Carter, Daniel said, I am asking you to stop comparing yourself to other guests. I am not comparing myself to them. I am comparing your procedures. Daniel lowered his voice. You are creating an uncomfortable environment. Maya looked around. By standing here? By challenging staff. Decisions in front of other guests. Maya took a slow breath. You stopped me in front of other guests. Daniel had no immediate response. Near the lounge, a woman in an evening dress watched openly now. A businessman who had been checking his phone lowered it and listened. The Grand Belmont had spent years teaching employees to anticipate what guests might need before they asked. Tonight, several guests were beginning to notice what one guest had been denied even after asking repeatedly. The benefit of ordinary belief. Marcus stepped closer to Daniel. We have her identification, invitation, and guest list entry. I recommend we let her proceed to registration. Daniel looked at him. And if the entry belongs to someone else? Marcus answered calmly. Then registration can resolve it upstairs. Claire shook her head. We cannot take that chance. Maya turned toward her. What chance? Claire froze. Maya continued, still speaking softly. You keep describing me as a risk without identifying the risk. I have not entered a restricted room. I have not refused identification. I have not threatened anyone. I have not disrupted your event. What exactly are you protecting the hotel from? Claire looked toward Daniel for help. Daniel's face had become noticeably less composed. This conversation is over, he said. Until we receive direct confirmation, you will not be permitted upstairs. Maya nodded. Then return my invitation. Claire hesitated before placing it on the counter. Maya took it and slipped it into her purse. Thank you. Daniel appeared surprised by her calmness. Perhaps he expected her to leave. Instead, Maya remained where she was. I will wait for your verification, she said. But I want it noted that I complied with every request you made. Daniel glanced toward the watching guests. If you continue refusing management instructions, we may need outside assistance. Maya's eyes settled on him. Outside assistance. Daniel paused before answering. Law enforcement. For the first time that evening, Maya's expression changed. Not fear. Not anger. Something quieter. Recognition. Her badge remained inside her purse, untouched. Daniel believed he was increasing the pressure. He had no idea he had just brought the conversation closer to the one truth Maya had deliberately chosen not to use. For several seconds, no one spoke. The words law enforcement seemed to hang between Maya and Daniel with an irony only one of them fully understood. Maya could have reached into her purse, removed her department credentials, and ended the uncertainty immediately. She did not. Her invitation was legitimate. Her identification matched it. Her name appeared on the hotel's guest list. Security had confirmed that she had caused no disturbance. If those facts were not enough, Maya wanted to understand what Daniel believed a badge would somehow prove that the truth had not already established. Before you call anyone, Maya said, I want to ask one question. Daniel folded his hands in front of him. Go ahead. Maya looked toward Claire, then back at him. What exactly are you reporting? Daniel's expression shifted. I am sorry. If you call the police, what are you going to tell them I did? Daniel glanced toward Marcus. You are refusing management instructions. Which instruction? To remain away from the private event until your attendance is confirmed. Maya nodded. I have remained here. I have not gone upstairs. Daniel paused. You were also asked to wait somewhere more private. Was that a security instruction or a request? Another pause. A reasonable request. Maya's voice stayed calm. And I declined it because I wanted the verification process to remain visible. Declining a request is not the same as refusing a lawful instruction. Marcus looked toward the floor for a moment, hiding what appeared to be agreement. Claire stepped closer to Daniel. She is challenging everything we say. Maya turned toward her. Questions are not misconduct. Claire's face tightened. Daniel lifted one hand. Enough. Maya stopped immediately. The silence that followed made his command sound larger than it was. He seemed to realize it too. "Ms. Carter," he continued, quieter now, "we are trying to protect a private function." Maya looked at him steadily. From what? Daniel had been asked that question before. This time there were more people listening. He looked toward the elevators, then toward the front doors. From unauthorized individuals. "What evidence says I am unauthorized?" Claire answered quickly. "We have not received direct confirmation from Ms. Foster." Maya nodded. "That is an absence of confirmation. It is not evidence that I do not belong here." Daniel's jaw tightened. Maya continued. "You have evidence pointing the other direction. My invitation. My identification. My employer. My coordinator's name and number. Your guest list. Your own security employee confirming that I have done nothing disruptive. What evidence are you placing against all of that?" No one answered. The elevator chimed again. A white woman in a green evening dress hurried toward it while searching through her purse. "I left my invitation in my husband's room," she told the nearby employee. The employee smiled. "No problem, ma'am. The banquet is on the 3rd floor." The doors opened. She stepped inside. Maya watched the elevator close. So did Marcus. This time, Daniel saw it too. Something passed across his face, brief but unmistakable. Recognition, perhaps. But recognition was not yet accountability. "Mr. Whitmore," Maya said, "I am asking you to apply the same standard." Daniel looked toward Claire. Claire avoided his eyes. For a moment, the easiest decision would have been to apologize, verify Maya upstairs, and end the entire encounter. Instead, Daniel reached for the hotel phone. Pride had entered the room, and pride often demanded that a bad decision be defended simply because admitting it had become uncomfortable. "I think we need an outside determination," he said. Maya watched him begin dialing. Marcus stepped closer. "Daniel, there is no criminal complaint here." Daniel stopped with his finger over the keypad. "Then they can tell us that." Maya felt something inside her settle. She had spent 11 years watching people make choices under pressure. The most revealing choice was often the one made after someone had been given every opportunity to reconsider. She adjusted the strap of her purse and stepped half a pace away from the desk. "All right," she said. Daniel looked at her. Maya's voice remained almost gentle. "If you believe calling the police is necessary, call them. But make sure you tell dispatch the truth. Tell them I showed identification. Tell them my name is on your guest list. Tell them security found no misconduct. And tell them the reason I am still standing here is that none of that was enough for you." Daniel did not dial immediately. Maya's words had forced him to confront how the call would sound once stripped of the polished language of hotel procedure. An invited guest had presented matching identification. Her name appeared on the event list. She had remained exactly where staff instructed her to remain. Hotel security had found no misconduct. Yet Daniel was considering calling the police because he still did not feel certain she belonged. Marcus Hill stepped closer to the desk. "Mr. Whitmore, before you make that call, I need to be clear for my report. I have not observed conduct that suggests Ms. Carter presents a security concern." Daniel looked at him. "You are saying we should simply let anyone upstairs." "That is not what I said." Marcus gestured toward the computer. "I am saying we have several pieces of information supporting her account and nothing contradicting it." Claire crossed her arms. "Except that nobody from the event has confirmed her." Marcus looked at her. "Nobody from the event has denied knowing her either." Maya remained silent. She did not need to add anything. For the first time, the disagreement was happening among the hotel staff themselves, and every sentence made the imbalance clearer. Daniel finally placed the receiver back on the desk. "We will give the event team 5 more minutes." Maya looked toward the ballroom clock. "And after 5 minutes? If we cannot confirm your attendance, I will ask you to leave." "Even though your guest list contains my name?" "We have discussed that." "No," Maya said quietly. "You dismissed it." Daniel's expression hardened. "Ms. Carter, I am trying to resolve this professionally." Maya nodded. "So am I." The elevator doors opened again. A middle-aged white man stepped out, glanced toward the lobby, then returned to the elevator after realizing he had reached the wrong floor. A staff member laughed politely and helped him without question. Maya watched the exchange. Daniel noticed her watching. This time, he said nothing. The 5 minutes passed slowly. Claire called the ballroom extension twice. No answer. She called Emily Foster's cell phone and reached voicemail. Daniel looked at the clock as though the passing time itself had become evidence against Maya. "Miss Carter, We cannot verify you tonight. Maya turned toward the computer. Read the guest list entry aloud. Claire looked uncomfortable. M. Carter, Richmond Police Department Delegation. Read the name on my invitation. Claire hesitated. Maya Carter. And my identification? Maya Carter. Maya looked at Daniel. So tell me what does not match. Daniel answered carefully. The guest list does not contain your full first name. Is there another Carter listed under the department delegation? Claire searched. No. Has anyone reported a missing or stolen invitation? Not that I know of. Has anyone from the banquet said I am not invited? No. Maya nodded. Then your concern is not based on conflicting information. It is based on your refusal to accept consistent information. Daniel's face changed. The statement was calm, but it left him nowhere comfortable to stand. Marcus glanced toward him and said, She is right about the facts. Daniel drew a slow breath. That does not change my responsibility for this hotel. Maya looked directly at him. Responsibility does not mean suspicion without evidence. A silence followed. Then Daniel reached for the phone again. This time, he did not hesitate. I am contacting law enforcement. Maya felt no surprise now, only disappointment. She stepped away from the desk, leaving several feet of open space around her. All right. Daniel began dialing. Maya continued. Tell dispatch there is no disturbance. Tell them I have complied. Tell them security found no violation. Do not turn your uncertainty into something I did. Marcus looked at Maya, then at Daniel. Claire stared down at the counter. Daniel stopped for half a second before completing the call. He had reached the point where reversing course would require admitting that the problem might never have been Maya. Instead, he chose escalation. And while he spoke to dispatch, the woman he was reporting stood quietly beneath the chandeliers with a police lieutenant's badge still hidden inside her purse. The patrol car arrived outside the Grand Belmont less than 10 minutes later, its lights off as it pulled beneath the hotel's limestone canopy. Daniel had described the situation to dispatch as a dispute involving access to a private event, but to his credit, perhaps because Maya had forced him to think about every word, he had also admitted there had been no threats, no property damage, and no physical disturbance. Maya remained beside the front desk, while the lobby continued moving around her. The banquet upstairs was now well underway. Somewhere above them, donors were listening to speeches about opportunity, fairness, and giving young people the dignity of being seen for who they could become. Downstairs, Maya was still waiting for a hotel manager to believe the evidence already sitting in front of him. The front doors opened, and Officer Jason Miller entered wearing his Richmond Police Department uniform. He was 41, a steady patrol officer with more than a decade on the job, and he approached without urgency after receiving a call classified as nonviolent. Daniel stepped forward immediately. Officer, thank you for coming. I am Daniel Whitmore, the hotel manager. Jason nodded. Dispatch said there is a disagreement over access to a private function. Correct. We have an individual claiming to be an invited guest, but we have been unable to fully verify her. Jason glanced toward the desk. His eyes moved past Claire, then Marcus, and finally settled on Maya. He stopped. The professional neutrality on his face changed instantly into recognition. Lieutenant Carter? The lobby seemed to become silent all at once. Maya gave him a small nod. Good evening, Officer Miller. Jason looked from Maya to Daniel, clearly trying to understand why his commanding lieutenant was standing at the center of a hotel access dispute. Ma'am, is everything all right? Daniel's expression changed before Maya answered. His eyes moved toward her purse, then toward the invitation on the counter, as if the same objects had suddenly acquired a different meaning. Claire stared at Maya. Marcus remained composed, but there was something almost weary in his expression, as though the truth had finally arrived wearing a uniform because nobody had listened when it came dressed as facts. I am fine, Maya said. The hotel called because management says they cannot verify that I am invited to the banquet upstairs. Jason looked toward Daniel. What information did she provide? Daniel cleared his throat. An invitation and identification. Her name also appears to correspond with an entry on the guest list, but the entry only uses a first initial. Jason glanced at Maya. Did she identify herself as police? Daniel shook his head. She said she worked for the department. Jason's eyebrows rose slightly. She does. Daniel attempted a polite smile. Yes, I understand that now. Maya heard the sentence carefully. Now, That single word carried the entire evening inside it. Jason turned back toward her. Lieutenant, do you want me to contact the event organizer? Please, Maya said. Emily Foster. Her number is with the front desk. Claire handed him the note without speaking. Jason used his department phone and called. This time, Emily answered. Jason identified himself, explained that he was standing in the Grand Belmont lobby with Maya Carter, and asked whether Maya was expected at the fundraiser. His expression changed almost immediately. Yes, ma'am. Understood. He listened for another moment. Yes, I will tell her. Jason ended the call and looked at Daniel. Emily Foster confirmed Lieutenant Carter is an invited representative of the Richmond Police Department. She said they have been waiting for her upstairs. Daniel's face lost some of its color. Claire looked down at the counter. But Jason was not finished. She also said the department delegation list was submitted to the hotel 3 days ago. Carter is Lieutenant Maya Carter. Daniel opened his mouth, but Maya spoke first. Officer Miller, thank you. You can clear the call. There is no police matter here. Jason understood immediately. Yes, ma'am. Then Maya turned toward Daniel. Her badge was still inside her purse. She had never needed to show it. The evidence had not changed. Her invitation had not changed. Her identification had not changed. Her name on the guest list had not changed. Only Daniel's belief had changed after another officer called her lieutenant. Maya looked directly at him. Now, she said quietly, we can talk about why you needed to know my rank before you believed my name. Officer Miller remained near the front desk for another moment, waiting to make certain Maya needed nothing else from him. She gave him a small nod. Thank you, Officer Miller. You can return to service. Yes, Lieutenant. He looked toward Daniel and Claire once more, then walked through the glass doors and disappeared beneath the hotel canopy. The patrol car pulled away without lights or sirens. No arrest. No criminal complaint. No disturbance. Just a call that never should have required police involvement in the first place. Daniel stood beneath the chandelier with the expression of a man replaying the previous half hour in a completely different light. Lieutenant Carter, he began, but Maya raised one hand gently. Maya Carter was enough. Daniel stopped. Claire looked down at the counter. Marcus Hill remained several feet away, quietly observing. Maya opened her purse, removed the invitation, and placed it beside her driver's license. She did not remove her badge. This was my invitation when I walked through your doors, she said. My name was Maya Carter then. My identification matched then. Your guest list showed Carter under the Richmond Police Department delegation then. I gave you Emily Foster's name and telephone number then. None of those facts changed when Officer Miller walked into this lobby. Daniel swallowed. I understand. Maya shook her head slightly. I do not think you do yet. Her voice was not angry. That made everyone listen more carefully. When he called me lieutenant, your expression changed. Claire's expression changed. Suddenly, I was credible. Suddenly, the information you already had became believable. Daniel glanced toward Claire, then back. At Maya. We were trying to follow security procedures. Marcus spoke before Maya could answer. There is something else you should know. Daniel turned toward him. Marcus stepped closer to the computer. I reviewed tonight's event access notes while Officer Miller was on the phone. There is no hotel policy requiring banquet guests to have room reservations. There is also no requirement for direct confirmation from the event coordinator when a guest has matching identification and appears on the submitted list. Claire's face went pale. Daniel stared at the monitor. Are you certain? Marcus nodded. Yes. The silence that followed was heavier than anything that had come before. The procedures Daniel had repeatedly defended were not procedures at all. They were decisions made in the moment, each one justified by the next. Claire finally spoke. I thought something seemed unusual. Maya looked at her. What seemed unusual? Claire opened her mouth, but no answer came. Maya waited. She had asked versions of that question all evening, and every time the response had been a different form of uncertainty. Daniel rubbed one hand across his jaw. Miss Carter, I owe you an apology. Maya's eyes stayed on him. For what? Daniel seemed surprised. For how this was handled. That describes the outcome. I am asking what you believe went wrong. He looked around the lobby. Several guests were still nearby, though most had respectfully returned to their conversations. Daniel lowered his voice. We questioned your right to attend after you had provided reasonable proof. Maya nodded. And? Daniel hesitated. This was the moment when apology stopped being a performance and became responsibility, and we applied a level of suspicion that was not applied consistently to other guests. Claire looked at him sharply. Daniel continued anyway. I saw other people being admitted with less verification. I did not stop it. Maya let the words settle. She had not needed to accuse him. The evening had eventually forced him to describe his own choices. Then the elevator doors opened, and a woman in a formal black dress hurried into the lobby. Emily Foster looked around urgently until she saw Maya. Lieutenant Carter, I am so sorry. We have been waiting for you upstairs. She turned toward Daniel. Her full name was on the master file I sent your events office. Daniel looked toward the computer. Emily continued, confused. She is also tonight's department representative and one of the scheduled speakers. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. The revelation was bigger than Maya's badge now. The hotel had possessed the answer before she ever walked through its doors. Maya looked at him and said quietly, "You did not need to learn who I was. You needed to believe the information you already had." Emily Foster stood beside Maya with an expression that moved between embarrassment and disbelief. "We can still get you upstairs," she said. "Your remarks are scheduled later in the program. We can adjust the order." Maya looked toward the elevators, then at the clock. She had come to speak about trust between young people and public institutions, and the irony was impossible to miss. Still, the teenagers supported by the fundraiser had nothing to do with what had happened downstairs. "I will attend," Maya said. Emily exhaled with relief. Daniel stepped forward. "Lieutenant Carter, before you go, I want to apologize again." Maya turned toward him. "You can apologize, but I need you to understand what you are apologizing for." Daniel nodded slowly. Claire remained behind the desk, unusually quiet. Marcus stood nearby, his hands relaxed at his sides. Maya continued. "If Officer Miller had walked in and discovered I was not a police lieutenant, would anything about the evidence have been different?" Daniel said nothing. "My identification would still have matched. My invitation would still have been legitimate. My name would still have appeared on your list. I still would have given you Emily's information. Marcus still would have told you I had done nothing wrong." Daniel looked down for a moment. "No, the evidence would have been the same." "Exactly." Maya's voice remained calm. "That is the part one needs you to remember. I should not have needed a rank to become believable." Claire finally looked up. "I did not know you were an officer." Maya turned toward her. "You did not need to know." Claire seemed startled by the answer. Maya continued. "You needed to know whether I had followed the same requirements as everyone else." "I had." After that, the question should have ended. Daniel drew a slow breath. "We did not know who you were." Maya looked directly at him. "You knew enough." The words were quiet, but they stopped everything around them. "You knew my name. You had my invitation. You had my identification. You had your own guest list. What you did not know was whether I was important enough for you to believe." Daniel's expression changed. There was no defense left that did not sound like another excuse. Marcus glanced toward Claire, then back toward Daniel. Emily stood silently beside Maya. "I saw other guests admitted with less verification," Daniel said at last. "I should have recognized that difference sooner." Maya nodded. "Recognizing it now matters only if it changes what happens to the next person." Daniel looked toward the front desk where the evening had begun to unravel. "It will." Maya did not ask for anyone to be fired. She did not demand public humiliation. Accountability, she knew, was not about creating another person to stand powerless beneath bright lights while strangers watched. It was about making sure the same failure could not quietly repeat itself tomorrow. "Review the access procedures," she said. "Make them clear. Make them consistent. If identification and a guest list match are enough, they should be enough for everyone. If additional verification is required, require it from everyone." Daniel nodded. "I will begin the review tonight." Marcus added, "I will document everything I observed." Maya looked at him. "Thank you." Emily gestured gently toward the elevators. "They are waiting for you upstairs." Maya walked beside her across the marble floor. This time no one stopped her. When the elevator doors opened, Maya stepped inside and turned toward the lobby. Daniel was still standing near the front desk, staring at the computer screen that had contained the truth all along. Claire stood beside him, no longer speaking. The doors began to close. Maya did not feel victorious. She felt something heavier and more useful than victory. The truth had finally been acknowledged, but justice would depend on what they chose to do after the embarrassment faded. 3 weeks later, Maya Carter returned to the Grand Belmont on a bright Saturday morning. The chandeliers were the same. The marble floors still reflected every passing figure. The elevators still opened with the same soft chime. Yet something about the lobby felt different. Maya wore a charcoal coat over a simple blue blouse and carried no visible sign of her profession. Her badge remained inside her purse, exactly where it had been the night everything changed. This time, she was attending a community mentoring breakfast organized by the same nonprofit. Near the entrance, a new sign directed event guests toward a staffed registration table. 2 employees checked names against a digital list using one clear standard for everyone: invitation or matching identification. No hotel reservation required. No improvised questions. No moving goalposts. Daniel Whitmore stood near the front desk speaking with Marcus Hill when Maya entered. He saw her immediately and approached, but he did not call her lieutenant. "Good morning, Miss Carter." Maya noticed the choice. "Good morning, Mr. Whitmore." Daniel gestured toward the registration area. "We completed the access review. Every event team now receives the same written verification procedure. Staff cannot add requirements based on personal judgment unless there is a documented security issue." Maya looked toward Marcus. He gave a small nod. Daniel continued. "We also reviewed what happened that night with our leadership team. Claire completed additional training and was reassigned away from event access while that review was underway." Maya did not smile. She had never wanted punishment for its own sake. She wanted memory turned into policy. "And you?" she asked. Daniel understood the question. "I completed the same training. I also asked corporate leadership to review my decisions separately." Maya studied him for a moment. "That matters." Before Daniel could answer, the glass doors opened behind them. A black couple entered with 2 children, a boy, who looked about 12, and a younger girl holding a folded event flyer. The father approached the registration table and explained that his invitation was on his phone, but the battery had died during the drive downtown. The employee smiled. "No problem, sir. May I see identification so I can check the guest list?" He handed it over. Within seconds, she found his name. "You are all set. Breakfast is on the 3rd floor. Enjoy your morning." The father's shoulders relaxed. His daughter smiled at the chandelier before the family walked toward the elevators. Nothing dramatic happened. No one stared. No manager appeared. No security employee was summoned. No one asked how they had obtained an invitation or whether they were staying at the hotel. Maya watched the elevator doors close behind them. Daniel watched too. "That should have been your experience," he said quietly. Maya looked at him. "It should be everyone's experience." Daniel nodded. There was no grand speech after that. Some lessons became smaller once they were truly learned. They became a policy followed at a desk, a question asked consistently, an assumption interrupted before it became an accusation. Maya walked toward registration and gave the employee her name. The employee checked the list, smiled, and said, "Welcome, Ms. Carter. 3rd floor." Maya thanked her and headed toward the elevator. As the doors opened, she remembered what Daniel had said weeks earlier. "We did not know who you were." At the time, he believed those words explained the mistake. Now he understood why they exposed it. Maya stepped inside and pressed the button for the 3rd floor. She had never needed them to know her rank. She had never needed them to know about 11 years of service, the officers she supervised, or the community she represented. She had needed only what every person walking through those doors deserved before titles, uniforms, wealth, or influence entered the conversation. A fair standard. A truthful judgment. Basic dignity. The elevator doors closed, and downstairs the hotel continued welcoming guests, not because it had finally learned who Maya Carter was, but because it had finally learned that no one should have to prove they are important before they are treated like they belong.